back with another episode of content. This week I'm talking to one of my longtime very good friends, Andrew Convey. Andrew was the frontman of legendary, semi-legendary, post-hardcore rock band Burn the Fleet. He's also the co-front person of the wonderful Future Love, who, if you haven't heard, you owe it yourself to check them out. And now's your chance, because I'm going to drop in a little clip of a Future Love track right at the start. We also spent some time deep diving on Burn the Fleet's seminal debut album, The Modern Shape, which we made back in 2012. It's a great album. I still think today it stands up and sounds great, and the songs are brilliant. So it's a bit of a long one today, and it's a Zoom chat, so there's a bit of a wonky connection there sometimes, so I do apologise for that, but I think there's some pretty good content in there. So, and as always, if you enjoyed it, let someone know, give us a review. For now, here comes that Future Love track, followed by the chat. Let's cut to the chase. Andrew Convey, founder of legendary Southampton post-hardcore band Burn the Fleet, who at last count have only done 2 or 3 comebacks. So maybe 2021 is going to be
3. I think we've done 2 reunions, right, and then maybe 2 last shows as well. So it's like Resurrection Part 2, like, you know.
It's like a good horror movie franchise, isn't it?
Exactly. Like, Burn the Fleet Goes to Hell, you know, Part 9 or something.
Oh, that's good shit though. So yeah, for some context, you're not a band anymore.
No. Could be.
When do
who knows?
The money's right on that.
Yeah, if we get nostalgic enough, then yes, it seems to happen.
Cool. So you actually, when did you sort of split up?
I'd say me and the chaps used to have a WhatsApp group called It's Over when we finished, and then we did 2 reunion shows, and then it became No, It's Really Over. That WhatsApp group has been deleted, so I actually think that probably is, and no one's ever got the inkling again. I think we got an itch a couple of times, but then I would never say never, but officially, you know, I think what are we in now? 2020. So I think officially, like, I can't even remember. We did shows a couple of years ago, so I don't even know. Like, did we play in 2018? Maybe we did. 2017. We did three like just random shows. So yeah, let's say 2017.
Okay, and so the other members of the band, canonical members of the band, you got James Swaby, Axe Master James Swaby.
Yep.
Secondary Axe Master Jack Spurway.
Yeah.
And then you got a couple of drummers.
Two, yeah.
Not quite Spinal Tap stuff, but original drummer Aaron Ross Barber. Yep. And then finally Dan, whose second name I fucking forgotten.
Dan Northover. Daniel Southunder, as he was like, no, Dan Northover, Southampton, infamous legend.
Yeah, he is definitely infamous.
He's like a folklore.
He's like the boogeyman, like.
Yeah.
When kids start going out to like 80s nights and club nights, they're like, oh, you have to be careful, you might cross Dan North.
Yeah, don't look in the mirror and say Dan North over 3 times, because he'll appear behind you and then smash your head into the mirror.
I think you're fine.
Yeah.
Great. Well, great memories anyway.
Good guy.
Yeah, great guy.
Yeah, he is genuinely a good guy.
Yeah, lots of love for Dan. I do want to at some point cover the back catalogue, mainly going to focus on Modern Shape.
Won't take too long. We've only got like 12 songs.
So I'm going to start. We'll do a couple of questions, My first question is going to be a bit of a sprawling one, a bit of a tag team one. Give me a couple of like pithy, short, anecdotal. These are your memories. This is how you would define Burn the Fleet. And for me, I would say glacial songwriting.
Are you trying to say like we're like an iceberg where it's all underneath the water, but then there's nothing on top? There's nothing on top of the water. On the surface level, it's very thin.
A new song is like an apocal thing.
Yeah. Well, I always think our problem was the fact that as much as I love all the guys and being in the band with them, they were just nightmares to write with. In terms of James was a real perfectionist, and he would scrap a song and restart it and stuff. So yeah. Anyway, but how would I describe Burn the Fleet? Oh god, that's a really good question. Or my memories of it. Glacial's good. Lazy would be one for me, but that's more a personal level. We were a band who everyone said you're really good, and we were like, okay, then I guess we'll just wait and see if someone picks us up or something. So
I'm trying to think how I would, what other terms I'd use. I think like for me, like there is, I mean, this will probably be a bit of an ego inflator, but you're still one of the few bands I've ever sort of seen live that wasn't like a finished product that was being pushed by, like a money machine behind them that could just turn up and absolutely like own a venue. Like it's a rare skill and it's a rare thing to see. And it was, I found it really intoxicating. I still think that's a good word for you guys live. It was always a little bit sillier than you expected it to be for such a po-faced band.
Yeah, that's me, I think. I'm not a very serious person. As you know, we've known each other a very long time, been good mates, and I can be very silly, and I used to let that out on stage as well. So I think that was the other thing, is that, again, I can say this now in hindsight. If you'd have asked me when I was in the band, I wouldn't be able to talk about it like this, but like in a post-mortem kind of way, like we were good live. I understand that now. Like I always thought, oh, we're good, but I understand that people did enjoy us for that reason, and that we could be very commanding, but at the same time, I would also then pull stupid faces or shout boobs in the middle of a song, like a small break or something. So, or the fact in like one of our songs, I managed to sing the break of Another Level, Freak Me Baby, over the top of it, So yeah, we were very visceral live. Is that the word I'm thinking of? Like, but also we were, or I was silly, I'd say. So it was a bit of a cool mix for people, because they were like, this is a serious band, but the singer doesn't take it.
Yeah. It's quite often I'd get a message from another band I'd worked with at some other part of the country that would be like, fucking hell, I just saw Burn the Fleet. They're brilliant. That was quite a common thing. So I definitely think, great live band, glacial, lazy. And there's no good word for this, but like I remember being in the studio and we were always so good at distracting ourselves with other shit.
Oh, big time.
Always. Big time. I wouldn't even say it's procrastinating. It's just like we suddenly think, right, the best thing we can do for the next 4 hours is think up band names that are heavy. And we'd have like a A4 pads worth of stupid band names, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I still play that game. So for anyone out there listening to this episode, you have to think of the heaviest band name possible with like as little words. So some of the best ones we came up with were Trawler, Elephant Crucifier, just the imagery of that.
I always remember just getting stuck on saying things like Cairo. Like
Cairo
why is Cairo so heavy?
My other favourite one is Braille.
Braille. It's just like the ridiculous things we get caught up in.
I think we I definitely remember in the studio we would get distracted very easily because, and again, I don't mean this on the boys or anything, but we definitely I've heard you mention on the podcast before, we came into the recording album process unprepared or with unfinished ideas, I would say, which is not what you want at all. And especially from me, I can literally remember being sat with you writing lyrics and then walking over and recording them.
I kind of think of this as the first record I really produced. Like I really felt like I committed everything I had to like not only like this way things sounded, which, a decade on or whatever it is, it would sound better if we did it now. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But I still think there's loads of really cool shit going on and loads of really cool. Like I remember some of those lyrics specifically that you're referring to that we sat on the sofa and put together and then went and did a takeoff. And like, I still think they're fantastic. And I think that was kind of an important part of that record, that so much of it was kind of like constructed while we were making it. I just remember clearing my calendar for like about 3 weeks and just that.
Yeah, you committed everything to it, to be honest, mate. And it was always kind of like, it was you chasing us to be like, right, come to my house and we're going to record this in my, here or something. We did some vocals in your spare room.
Totally forgotten about that.
But you definitely, and for me, because I've worked with you on other projects when you were at your old place and stuff, and it definitely for me, I've always said for you as a producer, you were the first person to ever ask me to do another take.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember being like, what? Like, and bearing in mind that band I was playing drums, and I'm not very good at drums, but it was just sort of like, it was kind of there. And I remember every other recording experience I'd ever had up until that point was like, you go to, I don't know, some mate's cousin's house and play a demo in their bedroom and they'd record it, and that was it. And I remember doing my first take and you just being like, okay, let's get another one because you're a bit sloppy here. And I was like, what? And no one had ever actually told me that. And I always like swear by that it made me a better musician in terms of actually having someone be honest,
Yeah.
I think you were very honest with us with the Burn the Fleet record as well, and that helped. And with Burn the Fleet, not only was it, like you said, the album for you that kind of started, I don't know, your Neil Kennedy producer, this is my identity. But for me, also, you had input in with lyrics with me and stuff like that. So it was like from not just recording to the actual shaping of it, What's your favourite microphone polar pattern? Omni, Uni, or Figure 8?
I actually have got a bit of a thing for Omni at the moment.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
I'm using Omni in places that I'd normally have used cardioid, because you get, like, Omni works slightly differently. You don't get any proximity effect. So for those that don't know, proximity effect is when you take a cardioid, which is a front-facing microphone, and place it near a sound source. What happens, the closer you get a build-up of low end and rumble. So if you want to get a mic close to like a kick drum, I found like using Omni is actually really cool. You get some roomy sounds in it, you get some like reflections. But yeah, thanks for asking, Andy. My answer is Omni. Yeah.
No problem, mate. I thought this will be quite heavy on a specific topic. So for those production guys out there, I had to throw in a production question that they'd enjoy.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Omni. Yeah, and I've actually I bought some vintage mics over last year. Like when I say vintage, not like super sexy 10 grand things, like something that was found in a bin kind of thing. And most of those are Omni, just because that's.
No, I got So I got a classic Behringer, just a vintage Behringer mic. Oh, lovely.
Have you got an unpopular opinion that is like a hill you would die on?
I would say, again, as I've got older, maybe this is, and it's fairly mainstream, I say, but just 9/11 is a bit weird. Like, I don't know. If you'd have caught me a few years ago, I'd be like, total inside job. They definitely did it. And I blame you partly because you were the one who put me onto the film Zeitgeist.
Right.
Where I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. But yeah, I don't know. That's a weird one. That's one I want to know the answer to. That
ties in with that. I've asked a few people that, have you got a conspiracy theory that you kind of actually do believe in? And I've actually had a few people kind of like say definitively, this is one I totally hold. I mean, for me, like, I've had this chat with a few people, but the Princess Diana one, I'm pretty convinced there's more to that.
No, I'm convinced of that. And again, because my mother has her own theory about it that kind of really stacks up. Well, it's just, again, this is just a theory. So for anyone listening, but it's basically the circles that Diana was moving in and the people she was with, that the royal family or the people who really run the country wouldn't allow that, because eventually it would lead to, let's say Diana ended up with Mr. Al-Fayed and, moved. You've then got the security risk of the future kings of England potentially having to go to the Middle East and stuff. And it would, so instead of kind of getting into that sticky situation, they were just like, right, bang. And then the other thing is that maybe she was pregnant as well, which is horrible to think. But yeah, that is one that's
a good one.
I mean, I don't even think it is really a conspiracy theory now, but Jeffrey Epstein obviously was murdered. Again, that's one I would die on. That's a hill I would die on. But I think that's one that a lot of people were like, this is weird.
Yeah, one of mine that I think is a hill I would die on is the Prince Harry thing, that he's,
that he's not Prince Charles's son.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one again. When you put a picture up of them next to each other, it is weird,
unreal, isn't it? But now he's kind of like distanced himself a little bit as well. It kind of all feeds into it. It makes it almost like not concrete, but I mean it feels pretty firm ground, I think.
Yeah, pretty much. But no, yeah, for me, I'd say some elements of 9/11.
Oh, if people listen to this, I know a few people without a doubt are going to give you grief. One, your ex-bandmate being one of them.
Big time. Yeah. That's why I can't just keep that sort of thing to myself, and just like, oh yeah. But I don't know, like the Tower 7 is weird. Like that is weird.
Yeah, I don't think a few people have sort of said, oh, it makes sense because of this, but maybe I'm just too thick to get it.
Yeah. I'm not. Again, I have to remember I'm not a structural engineer, so I can be like, well, have you ever seen a controlled demolition? But then again, I've never seen another building that had a plane slammed into it. So just a dummy, like watching films on Netflix, being like, this is it.
Yeah, like the Flat Earth guys.
Oh, now that is one I do not believe in. That is ridiculous.
I think it's just like a little group for membership, isn't it? Like some people that are lonely have found a way to get close to people.
I don't understand any of David Icke's stuff either. I don't really get that.
A big fucking anti-Semite, bigger piece of shit.
Well, it's like Andy thinks that people are lizards.
Yeah,
well. Am I wrong? And he seems to change his mind all the time on what he does and doesn't believe. So, yeah. And I tell you one I definitely don't believe in. But again, it could all come out. This 5G business, don't believe that for a second. Like, don't get that. And I don't get how... anyway, it's just people, isn't it? Like it's just people now can just kind of say whatever they want on the internet and someone's going to listen, basically.
Absolutely.
Do you find you take inspiration in your work from areas other than music? So could you watch a film? I know it sounds mental, but could you watch a film or read a book and think that inspires you then in the production process? Or do you think it's purely just sound?
No, I think like I was asked something similar before, and I talked about how I'd use like the sound effects from Twin Peaks in a song. So I definitely think it does. I think like as a writer, musician, rather than producer, it 100% does. So quite often in the past, I've written songs after reading books or watching films. And even though it might not be like a literal kind of thing, the imagery has kind of affected how what I've written. But in terms of production, yeah, I think so. I kind of think of it more like a few times I've been given a reference of things like, we love the film Drive and we want our song to sound like Drive. Do you know what I mean? Not necessarily sound like that song, but sound like that film feels.
It would fit on that soundtrack.
Yeah. So I've had a few, or maybe not even that, just that kind of like, it has the vibe that film has, or, that's maybe a bad example, but I've had people ask me stuff like that. And then you kind of immerse yourself in that film or the soundtrack and be like, right, what can I take? What are the themes that kind of work? So maybe it's more like if I'm given an artist's mood board, then it's easier to kind of interpolate. Is that a word, Mel? Interpolate? Sure. That into the music. But yeah, I can't think of an example other than the Twin Peaks one where I obviously went like, right, this reminds you of Twin Peaks. I'm actually going to basically take audio from Twin Peaks and put it in their song. Have you got any examples of that you've heard of, like anecdotally or anything?
No, I mean, I suppose the classic one I think back on is Brian Wilson, because I'm a big Beach Boys fan. When he was recording the infamous Smile album that originally never came out, and it's kind of what tipped him over the edge. He had this whole idea of like doing like a kind of like songs based around fire, and he then would like, you know, light fires and stare at them to try and get inspiration. And then it was kind of during his LSD trip, but like a firehouse like burnt down the road from the studio, and it made him completely paranoid that he'd caused it somehow because of his LSD trip and the music. So I've heard of stuff like that, or like it'll come up in this conversation, but Thrice, who are...
I was going to say Thrice are a good example, aren't they?
A very favourite band of mine. When they were recording the Alchemy Index, they buried a microphone for the Earth CD, just, you know, from that point of view. So, it was more if there was anything else other than music that inspires you or helps with the production of the record.
I think more as like a wannabe artist, I would definitely be like influenced by films and books. Definitely. There's a few songs I can sort of remember where one of them was House of Leaves. I remember reading that and that having like a postmodernist thing. Oh, I can use this as part of a song. Like I can think of a way to, you know, incorporate this into a song. I mean, it's probably shite, but yeah. So there's definitely been examples of that. I should also ask you, like, being that we're talking about Burn the Fleet and having just listened to it all, you mentioned kind of like art and other kind of medias influencing me. It definitely influenced your writing, right?
Oh, big time. Yeah, big time. Because I was always of the proponent that, you know, I'm never one to believe this whole you have to be in pain to write good art. I've never really... Because, you know, I think you can write good art when you're not in pain, you know. So for me, I never wrote anything personal, but I don't know. I think you could probably look at the songs now and say, oh, it was about this. But I remember at the time I was quite staunch, and especially the first EP, I was like, they're not about me or anything. And again, as the vocalist, you're traditionally the one who writes the lyrics. But again, it was always a bit of an effort from everyone, you know. I mean, Jack is a really good writer in terms of, and Jack is amazing at coming up with words and phrases of how to say the same thing, but more eloquent or more interesting. So for me, it would be, you know, I'd read the first EP, Confessions of a Justified Sinner, is essentially the Jekyll and Hyde story, and that's why it's called Confessions of a Justified Sinner, because you were like, oh, well, the Jekyll and Hyde book was originally called Memoirs, or it's like a subtitle.
Yeah,
like,
I can't remember what it was.
That's about that, and then there's been a few things like Nautilus was Jules Verne, the ship that Nemo was on. Yeah, so that was another one of our songs. And then the song that everyone loved that we would play, Handfuls of Sand.
Based on Ellis, isn't it?
It is, yeah, that's American Psycho, yeah. So that's one of my favourite books.
Yeah, because I remember we talked about that, how like the imagery of that scene where he thinks he's so fucking nuts and he sort of catches himself actually just eating handfuls of sand.
Eating handfuls of sand on the beach, yeah. And the first line in the song Handfuls of Sand is "Abandon all hope, all who enter here," and that's the first line in the book of American Psycho that he sees written on the Bank of America or something like that.
Yeah.
Abandon all hope, all who enter here. So yeah, that. But then I'd say with Modern Shape, there's a bit of that, but then there is maybe a few personal bits.
I mentioned earlier going for a walk and having a listen, and one of them really bringing like sort of real like shivers, and it was Suits. And I remember listening to having just listened to lyrics, I remember the conversation about what the lyrics are about. And I remember he was working a pretty menial job, a bar, wasn't he?
Well, it was Jack.
And there's some dude there that just had he would come and sit at the bar every day or whatever, and he had tons of cash and would kind of like, would he kind of like not tease Jack or lead him along?
Yeah, it was basically, so Jack worked in like a really kind of nice wine bar, and they used to get a lot of like suits. There was this one particular guy who wouldn't actually look at Jack to order things and would just have like a £20 in his hand and sort of wave it to kind of get Jack's attention, but not look at Jack's. So just go, and then he'd make weird noises like to like get his attention. like almost like catcalling him with like money. It was just like that sort of thing. So yeah, Jack just went mental. It was like, I need to write this song.
The lyrics are really fucking good. They really nail that sort of feeling that I think a lot of people, especially a lot of musicians that are sort of touring and working part-time jobs, that kind of feeling that there's these people out there that literally do look down on you, that think you're less than they are.
Yeah. It's one of those classic things that, you know, you go to a family gathering and it's always like some random auntie or uncle like, so how's the band or how's the music going? You know, and it's like, oh, and then you're trying to explain to them, well, we got this really big show, we did this, but because you're not on the X Factor, they don't know what that means.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd definitely say on Modern Shape, it was input from all of us.
Yeah.
Like real input and like more personal stuff from everyone, as opposed to the story structures or I've been influenced by this bit of media or, you know, something.
But it is, I think that was worth bringing up just how, especially early Burn the Fleet, lyrically, it was really influenced by movies, books, stuff like that, rather than the traditional kind of lyrical fare.
Yeah, it's only now that I'm in another project, which we've recorded with you, Future Love, that I actually have written personal stuff.
Yeah.
Which is weird. You know, I don't know if that's an age thing or something, but I got to my 30s and was like, oh, I can write personal songs now. Wicked.
Yeah, I think like the personal stuff, it doesn't have to be sad stuff. It's like reflective songwriting, isn't it? It's when you kind of measure up stuff and think about how it affected you. It doesn't have to be, you have to have had pain in order to.
Well, yeah, that's always it. That's always what you hear. Or good art is, you know, the best art comes from pain. You used to occasionally / still dabble in live music. What is your best and worst live gig moments?
We're playing Froome's legendary Cheese and Grain, which is it sounds like it's going to be a background of a pub, but it's massive. It's like a huge, like a country, almost like a huge village hall kind of thing. Like, I mean, you could easily get, in my memory, like 500-600 people in there. Like,
I think Foo Fighters played there. I think they played there for like a Glastonbury warm up or something.
I mean, it is big. It's one of those places where like it had a really high stage, and the sound person was in like a platform halfway through the room, like you would have at a festival. It wasn't like at the back of the room because that was miles away. But it was an all-day thing, and we were, I don't know, it was like 6 or 7 p.m. and we were playing, and this is in an era where I really wanted to make sure I was looking cool on stage. And the stage was like these black curtains all the way around. It looked really cool. And I ran up and did a wall kick against the wall, which wasn't a wall, and it was a curtain. And I went through the curtain straight down a set of stairs. Barely even hitting a step on my way down, such was the velocity of my leap. And I just, was a crumpled heap. I remember looking up the stairs and the singer of my band's head popping through the curtain, still holding a mic, being like, "Are you all right?" I was like, "No, I'm not." I had really bad bruising all down my legs. And
one of those things that when you told me, I nearly died like of laughter. And I was like, it's one of those things where if, you know, time travel was possible, people would be like, I want to go back and see the dinosaurs. I'm like, I want to go back to the Cheese and Grain in Frome and watch Neil Kennedy attempt a wall kick through a curtain that he didn't realise was no wall was there. I want to go back and see that.
So my best moment, they're much fewer and further between. Performing live, best moment. I remember playing the Pyramids in Portsmouth with Alkaline Trio and Hot Water Music. And that was the first time I remember playing in front of a big crowd and it going well. I mean, that's quite a cool one. That was cool. Backstage was fun. Got to meet Chuck Reagan and the guys from Alkaline Trio. And Matt Skiba was particularly strange.
No.
He was a really weird character. But like Chuck was like exactly what you'd expect him to be, like a really rootsy, nice, friendly man that offered us like sandwiches and stuff. He was just a
wicked.
Like, and I really liked Hot Water Music then as well. I don't know. I had a few good memories like that. Generally speaking, it's kind of cool playing shows. I think my favourite ones are probably the Viva Sleep ones when we played with Tube Lord, because at the time that I thought that
you loved them. Yeah, you were a big Tube Lord fan. Yeah.
And I got email out of the blue from one of them, Sean, I think, the bassist, just being like, "Hey, I heard your stuff. Do you want to?" It was something crazy like, "Do you want to come on tour with us?"
Wicked.
And, I was part of their mailing list. I just thought it was a mailing list thing at first. I clicked on it and it was like, "Hey, dude, do you want to come on tour?" And I was like, "That's a weird mailing list thing." And then I realised it was actually a direct question to me. And
wicked.
So we obviously couldn't do a tour. We didn't do a tour. We did like a few nights in a row basically with them. And I remember them being real knobheads, which is a bit of a letdown.
I remember that part of the story. Yeah, I do remember that.
I remember Sam, who was the BBC drummer, definitely threatened to beat up their drummer.
That sounds about right. Yeah, sounds about right.
He said something like, "Oh, there's a hole in my skin. Who did it?" And I was like, "Oh, you want to talk to our drummer about that, man? It's not me." And I think he was, "Oh, yeah, right. We'll just, all right, whatever."
Don't worry about it. I'll get another one.
I get another. I had some fun, but largely I didn't, and that's why I don't really do it very often.
If I forced an embarrassing one out of you, you can have that worst one out of me.
Yeah, was it your first final show?
It was our first final gig.
I can look at you while you say this.
Oh my god, it's mental, isn't it? Like when I think back on it. So it was our first final gig. So originally, Burn the Fleet, we were going to break up, and because we were writing new stuff after Modern Shape,
wasn't it? Yeah,
and it didn't sound like Burn the Fleet, so we were like, "Oh, maybe we end Burn the Fleet and we come back as a new band." We played Takedown Festival in Southampton, and it was advertised as our last gig, and we had a really good bill in. And I remember mentally, I laugh thinking about it now. It's like Breed 77 were playing after us, which is funny. Or was it Breed 77? Yeah, or was it I think it was Breed 70. It was someone mental. And I was like, that's weird. And we were playing Southampton Uni, and we were on the stage that was in Student Union, and it was rammed. Everyone showed up, and there was a couple hundred people. I'd say it was sort of pushing 700 people in there or something. And everyone was going nuts. It was this crazy atmosphere. And I had this plan, which was I was going to smash one of my basses up on stage, because I was like, I've never smashed a guitar up. That'll be cool. That'll be a cool thing to do. So anyway, we're playing the last song. Everyone's into it. And I take the bass off and I smash it on the stage, but we're playing on a temporary theatre stage. They kind of put in that's raised up, but there's no give in the bottom of it. So I hit the bass and nothing happens. I'm like, oh shit, I'm like a twat now. So I hit it again, nothing happens. I then see a ceiling pillar above me, a little bit of a ledge, and I think, oh, I'll bash it off that. I bash it off the ceiling pillar, and half the pillar comes down on my head, crumbles like pasta. And I'm like, oh no, kind of down a dick now, and I sort of panic. So I just throw the bass into the crowd, unplug it, and it gets taken away in the sea of people. I'm like, wicked. Anyway. And that's not even the worst bit. Everyone's like, oh, that's a real twat story. No, here it comes, guys. Buckle in for this.
Here's the money shot.
In my defense, this is the worst thing I've ever done, but I was high on, I can't explain it. The show, I was high off the high of the show, and I wasn't really thinking, anyway. Some guy comes up to me, he's holding the bass after we've played, and he says, "Here, man," he goes to give it back to me. And I didn't really want it. It was like a cheap sort of Squire that I had. For anyone listening, Neil is on a webcam. Really can't even look at me as I'm telling this. So yeah, he gives me the bass. He goes to give me the bass. He's like, "Here, dude." And I'm like, "No, man, you can keep it." Now, I should have just stopped. I should have just said that. But I grabbed his arm. So I said, "No, man, you can keep it." I grabbed his arm and I said, just promise me one thing. You'll make a band? Like I'm some sort of fucking Jesus or something. And the guy looked at me like I was a piece of shit and said, "Cheers, man." And I bet he literally took that bass to Cash Converters the next day. But I said, "Promise me one thing, you'll start a band."
But that, like you said the other day, that guy's Kurt Cobain.
That's Kurt Cobain. You're welcome, everyone listening. So, and he did, and it's Nirvana. So well done.
Well done. Thanks for that.
But there you go. There's my embarrassing one that I did.
Such a good story. Oh, okay. I like this question. What's the last bit of art that you saw that sort of affected you? So, movie, book, TV. Ooh. Painting. I'm just listing art forms now.
I'm back at work now, but I was furloughed for 6 weeks, so I've digested quite a lot of stuff that I'd not watched before. And one thing I sat down and watched, and it stayed with me for a little while, I'd never properly seen it before, was, I know it sounds stupid, but An American Werewolf in London. Because I'd never like actually watched it. And I thought, well, this is this classic thing that everyone talks about. And that really stayed with me for a couple of days afterwards. And I don't know if it's a case of like, because it's an older film and it has like anything with practical makeup effects really sticks with me.
Yeah.
Like the old Hellraiser film like really creeps me out, like still to this day and stuff like that. And I don't know, it just really stuck with me, like how they created the kind of werewolf, but also how they don't use it a lot of the time. And it's a bit like Jaws. Like Jaws is one of my favorite films, and it's the fact you don't see the shark for most of the film is the scary part. And they do that very well in An American Werewolf in London. And for anyone who hasn't seen it, the transformation scene is unreal. It's like, and I watched it like after I finished watching it, I went back and just watched that scene, and it was just like, I literally don't know how they did this, but it's unbelievable. Like, and for the time as well, you know.
Funny story. That was the film that I saw accidentally when I was a kid. You know that kind of formative thing, and it scared the shit out of me. It was that film, and So I remember seeing, the stick to the paths, all that kind of stuff, and then I think I got up to that bit and then maybe parked it and was too scared to watch it or whatever. And then obviously watching it later on and watching it again as an adult, realised how much it's basically a black comedy. And
it really and that's what put a lot of people off originally. It was this kind of horror comedy tone, and they couldn't sit with it. They couldn't work out like what it was or anything.
It's really a really unique film. I think it's a really good film.
Yeah. I think the only other thing was I went to Tate Modern with Tom, my best mate Tom, a while ago, with the intention of being like, I'm going to go look at art, and I hated it. I didn't get it at all. I was just sort of moaning the whole time walking around. But there was one exhibition that I really liked, which was a man, I can't remember the artist's name, but he had taken a picture every hour, I want to say for a year, and used a clocking in machine. And it was all the Polaroids of that. And it was a really cool exhibition. And you could almost see like the stress of having to do it every hour, like through the pictures. Every hour for a year. Yeah. It's quite an old project. It was from, I want to say like the late 80s he did it. Right. It was quite an old thing. But I remember seeing that. And when I actually looked at almost the pain in his face on some of the days, that really sort of stuck with me and kind of then made me go, modern art's cool. Whereas like Tom will tell you, I walked around Tate Modern looking at things being like, how I don't get it. That's just a sheet. Like there was one, it was just a sheet was in the corner. And I was like, I don't understand. What's the most experimental thing you've done in the studio that have worked and then one that hasn't worked?
Oh no.
I watch Bohemian Rhapsody. I don't know if you've watched that yet. There's a bit where they show them in the studio and they hang a amp like on a piece of string and swing the amp back and forth past the microphone, almost to give like a left and right hard panel. And it just made me think, I'm going to ask Neil actually if he's done anything weird or.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, loads of people have done really wacky shit. Like, and I don't often think it actually sounds good, but the anecdote becomes part of the legend and the mythos of something. Yeah. And there's lots of examples of that. I'm trying to think of something. Oh, so there's a band I worked with a few years ago called Frown Upon, and they had they're a really good band. They had a bridge section that they basically nothing really happened in it. So they wanted like atmosphere. But it's one of those things where they might remember this differently, but in my memories, it's kind of like we want it to feel like this and have this kind of sound, but no real kind of like direction for how they were going to achieve it. So one of the things I did was basically just go and get them to like stroke the piano strings, wires, or I don't even know what you call. What's it called? Piano wire. Yeah. So whatever, like that, because we have a really short scale upright piano. the low notes are almost like really fat springs.
Yeah.
Short, so you can get loads of cool resonances. So we were basically rubbing them and scraping them and hitting them with sticks, a bit like prepared piano, basically. And we got different kind of like notes out of it and different chords out of it, and basically built up the first low drone, then a medium drone, then a high drone, then like a harmony drone. So it became like a big choral like pad. And it grew in kind of density and harmonic complexity as the bridge kind of grew and got more intense before the last chorus. And it worked perfectly to just completely capture that kind of weird energy they wanted that they couldn't quite put their finger on what it was. So that was like, I'm not going to say that it was like an innovation or like...
No, that's cool. But yeah, that's definitely something you wouldn't have
kind of
thought of
piano, like just striking it, dragging stuff against it and stuff like that, and making a noise out of it. It's actually a couple on the Modern Shape. There's a couple of really cool like bits of sound design on there that I completely forgot about. My favourite one is in Irish Eyes, Is Your Breathing.
Yeah, which sounds like waves. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, that's cool, that one. You wouldn't know it's me breathing necessarily,
it works really, really well. Some of the other noises that are in that bit are just bloody cool. It's just really
it's a good bookend to the album, and I like, me, I love a harmony, so it was cool to literally do like a 6-part harmony or whatever it ended up being.
And it had loads of cool. It has like a round at the end, doesn't it? It's cool.
Yeah, and it links up with the first track. Then the lyrics from the first song come back in like an overture kind of thing, and it's like to bookend the album.
Something that hasn't worked, I think, like just normally it's just funny positions from Mike, like, maybe it sound really cool if I did this, and I mean most of the time they just really don't. I've got a project in at the moment, and they were talking about putting a microphone. They wondered if they could put a microphone in like the bedroom or the green room above the studio, and in my brain's like, why? I mean, it's miles away, like. But it's not miles away, and like it'll sound cool. It's miles away, and it'll sound like. It was like
your neighbours who are having a party or something.
But it did remind me when I was making the Prestamiko record. I thought, right, this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to track with the speakers really low, and I'm going to bring a mic all the way out into the stairwell and record that stairwell because, Led Zeppelin and all that. It just sounded so shit. It doesn't sound good at all. I'm really excited about how I was going to have this cool, vibey track. And it was like, no, it just sounds shit. I was going to delete that immediately. And I have a lot of those kind of things. Like, I'm going to put a mic in the piano while the drummer's drumming, and then it'll resonate and go, it just sounded fucking terrible. I've had a lot of those things, but there's no harm in that as long as
No. I remember because we recorded drums at Pete Miles' studio for the John Fleet album, and I remember that I don't know about now, but his studio's above a workshop, the live room, and we put a mic through the hole of the floor into the workroom. I don't know if it
sounded really bad.
That's why I asked, because I remember you being like, this would be cool, this hanging mic under the floor, and it was like,
it just sounded shit, to be honest. What is the silliest thing? What's the stupidest thing while you're in the band that you got upset about?
There's a lot. There's a lot. I remember one thing I got really annoyed about when I think back on it now. It's sort of stupid, and it wasn't anything to do with the band, but I remember being annoyed at them because I was explaining the story to them, and they didn't get why I was so upset about it. And I remember being annoyed at James for not being on my side. And it was you might remember this story, but I don't have Twitter. I've never liked Twitter. I think it's like a rubbish platform. Some of my friends set an Andy Convey Twitter up as me, like a fake Twitter, and I had no idea about it, and they were tweeting as me. And it was all, again, looking back on it, it was all harmful stuff, and it was stuff I would kind of say.
Harmless or harmful?
No, harmless. It was like, I'm going to go to the cinema today. It was like stuff I would say. So then my friends who didn't know it wasn't me started following me and were like messaging, being like, I miss you so much, dude, kind of thing. It was a mate of mine who messaged me and was like, dude, you've got a Twitter account. I don't think it's you because you said something that doesn't sound like you. And I was like, what? And he sent me the link. And I was like really annoyed that someone had done And it turned out it was like Denson. It was literally like 10 people, and they were all sharing it together. It was like a collective of people. It was like doing it, which is like, well, funny. But I remember being really annoyed about it. And I was like, it's identity theft, like really dramatic, kind of thing. And then I remember explaining to the guys and Swaby just laughing at me and being like, what? I don't get why you're so upset. And I got really, really fucking annoyed at him, but that he wasn't on my side. Do I still own any shares in the ranch? Has my name been removed from the masthead?
I think if I remember rightly, you came and plastered like a corner of a room or something.
Yeah, and it's still standing. So I think you'll find it's still there. So anyone who's recorded there, Rala Tomasi, Funeral for a Friend, Creeper, you're welcome. You're welcome that you got to record in a room that I helped build.
Yeah, that's still standing. I think I gave you one share, but there's no value. So it's
probably diluted.
It's mainly just debt now. So if anything, you probably owe me like 20 grand or something like that.
Sorry, mate, the connection's going a bit. I didn't quite catch that last part. But I can still remember having to go there with you, helping. You were like, anyone want to help? And I was like, yeah, of course. Neil's my friend. And I can still remember hoovering up cobwebs out of the rafters. And when we found like a half-eaten mouse that had been devoured by a spider, and I was like, that is the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life.
I tell you what, I had flashbacks to that not long ago. We built a mezzanine in the live room and went up there and got me right up close to the rafters at the top of that room. And there was some, it's like dust and cobwebs so thick it's become like, when you used to see old seances and people you like vomiting like cheesecloth. It looks like that. It's like great.
Well, it's like the film Arachnophobia where they're in the barn at the end. That's what it was like. It was mental. And I remember and then you being like, I've given you a share in the ranch, and I always love to say to you, how's my share? But no, in all seriousness, it was a good time helping you, like the minimal effort that I did do setting it up. seeing what the ranch has become.
Yeah.
From just essentially that one room that you had, to like the Black Lodge now and everything that's been is amazing.
Yeah, it's really amazing. It's really, really cool. Like so many people came and helped out. Danny Riddler, you and some old friends, would come and sort of just put in labour just to help get it done, which is pretty wholesome when you think about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, thanks for that. You still, as far as I'm concerned, you still have a share. I'm not sure what the value of that share is, but...
Right, let me know. Can I get some points on some big record?
No, points on my next record. How about that?
Okay.
All right, so my last question, and it's less wholesome, is Andrew Convey, have you ever seen a ghost, or do you have a spooky tale to tell?
I do have a good ghost story. I personally have not seen a ghost that I know of, but my ghost story is my auntie and uncle used to own a pub, and there was always this story that there was an old lady, like an old lady ghost. And my uncle has claimed he's seen her a couple of times, but, he was pissed probably, or like had a few. The creepiest part of the story is he used to have a girl come and clean the pub. And this is in the days when pubs used to shut at lunchtime, or, they wouldn't open till like 1 o'clock in the afternoon or something. So they had this girl come and clean the pub, and she had a young kid who was like 4 or something, and he would sit upstairs playing and she'd like clean the pub. Anyway, one day she could hear him laughing, playing around upstairs. Anyway, she started calling him for his lunch, and she was like, "You coming for lunch?" And he didn't answer. She could hear him laugh. And then after like 10 minutes, he hadn't come down, but she could still hear him. So whatever room he was in, he was just staring into one of the corners of the room, and he was like laughing and sort of looking up. He was sat on the floor, like looking up. And she was like, "What are you doing?" And he was like, "I'm just playing with the old lady," and was like laughing. And she was like, "Oh, I didn't think anything of it." Told my auntie, and then my auntie was like, "Oh God," because my auntie had never told this story to them or whatever. So this little kid, and there's always that thing of like kids are more perceptive things, and you lose it as you get older or whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously, this little kid was like sat and like having a chat with this old lady and stuff. Like,
jeez.
Yeah, pretty weird. But I don't know if I necessarily do believe in ghosts or not. Like, I think it can be comforting to people and stuff, and I'd like to think it's. Yeah, because I like to think I'd come back as a ghost, like haunt someone or something, like haunt the ranch and be like, where's my one share, Neil? You're like, oh.
You promised me a share.
Yeah, you're like, can you guys hear that? You take your cans off, and it's just like, no, you didn't hear it, Neil. And it's like, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. You're pretty much like Ghost, don't exist. I know you like a spooky story.
Love a spooky story, mate. Right, so just before we wrap up, I'm just going to go through the list of the tracks on Modern Shape, and we'll just get a little back and forth on each of them. So Modern Shape, 2012, 8 years ago.
Crazy, isn't it? Right. That's mental.
That's wild, isn't it? So the first track is In This Hole Lives the Wicked King.
I'll go on, lost in your veins, growing so strong to your ribcage.
So where did that song title come from? I remember
that was, I believe, that's a Charles Manson quote from Helter Skelter.
Okay.
I think Jack thought it sounded really cool. It was like in this hole lives the wicked king. And yeah, it just sounded like a cool quote. So we were like, yeah, wicked.
So that was more like a concept thing, wasn't it? That we would have like bits of other songs or bits of the last song.
Yeah, and like there's a lyric in that song which is I'll go on lost in your veins. And I wrote that because I read an article about blue whales and how you can swim through a blue whale's veins because they're so big. So it always kind of stuck with me, and I kind of like thought, oh, that's a cool.
Great. So the first full song is The Greatest Fire. Which I have a memory of. Me and you were going to do a project together, and you sang me this idea you had, and it ended up being The Greatest Fire.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that was rattling around in my head for a long time. And that one was about a girl I met at the time who was awesome, and it didn't work out. And it was like she kind of moved to another country, let alone away. So I wrote that lyric in there.
Oh, that's a great lyric.
I forget now.
Distance is lines on a map.
Distance means nothing but lines on maps. I'll draw this one for me and find you among the smaller things. So that was kind of my way of being like, you never know.
Sad About a Girl song. We have Six Sisters straight up that. The song for Nightmare for Sibilance, remember that?
Yeah, well, it's like, that one's weird. Like, I haven't sort of said this yet, but it's only in the last like 4 years that I've been able to listen to the album, and enjoy it. And I know that sounds mental, but I'm one of these people who it's like I can't listen to myself, like in any project or whatever. And then about 4 years ago, I sat down and listened to it, and I was like, "Fuck, it's a good album, actually." And one of my favorites, which we never played really live or anything, is Six Sisters.
Yeah.
And again, that was just one. It was kind of like lyrics were sort of spewing out of me that sounded cool or whatever. But my particular favorite of that is the ending with all the kind of harmonies and all the big background stuff, because again, it was like me and you were like, okay, do this, and then I just then build and build and build.
Yeah.
And again, it's like Thrice are one of my favorite bands. Obviously, we're in a band called Burn Sleep, the Thrice song, we sound like Thrice. But the Wailer, Thrice, off the album next, has that amazing like harmony crescendo bit, and I wanted to try and do our own one of those.
In my mind, that those sort of choral things that kind of are a theme through the record, I thought that came from because we were all obsessed with Gorilla Manor by.
Yeah, and that was another one at the time. Yeah, that was Local Natives, Gorilla Manor, which is their first album, which again is like three of them are really good singers and they harmonise. It's not just the main two guys. And there's a really good video of them playing in Paris where they're walking down some sort of old shopping arcade, or something. And they end, if anyone's listening, just Google Local Natives, a takeaway show. And the end of the song, they end in this big archway that's obviously got such good reverb, and it's one of the best sounding live things I've ever heard with all harmony.
Stunning. Yeah, Black Holes, the hit single Black Holes is next.
We'll lead the blind and give them eyes. We'll clear a path to walk upon your side. Behind the counter
Yeah, old school Black Holes. That went through a lot of changes. That's so old. It used to have a different chorus.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was
You remember?
Immortal Youth Look Up to Me.
Oh God! And that was because of that band, wasn't it?
There was a band in Southampton called Immortal Youth. Yeah,
With Vega. And it was Ian from Creeper was in it.
Ian was in it, and Drew Convey was in that band. So yeah, Immortal Youth. But I don't know about Black Holes. I think again because we changed the lyrics to it. I don't really know what the meaning of the song.
Well, I remember like the lyrics that I walked through the halls of mirror photography. Now that was back in the day when everyone was doing like selfies, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was then. And then Coins for Eyes was because of like mythology of like where you die and you have coins for the boatmen to come and take you into the afterlife. And I just again. I get influenced. I get one idea and get influenced by something.
Yeah, because that kind of imagery pops up later on as well with the If You See the Boatman.
Yeah, which is in another song. Yeah,
is that in Cenotaph? Or
that's in Cenotaph. Yeah, If You See the Boatman, that is the next song. Oh, there you go. Yeah, so we have the Points for Eyes lyric in Black Holes, and then in Cenotaph we have If You See the Boatman and the boatman would come and take you to the afterlife, will you tell him the tale of your life? Kind of thing, because it's like, again, the Grim Reaper coming to kind of thing.
Yeah, see, Cenotaph's my favourite song on the record, I think.
If you see the boatman, will you tell him the tale of your life?
I think that's a lot of people's, a lot of people I know who listen to it. That's kind of their favourite.
So dramatic.
And that's definitely the thing. It's a personal song. I don't want to talk about what it's about. But again, that came from all three of us. I say Swaby. I say Swaby more than anyone. That was kind of a poignant one for Swaby. And yeah, it's all about, like we've got lines in there. You cast no shadow because the shadow of your father is blocking out yours, kind of thing. And
that's a banger.
Not having your own identity and sort of stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is a dramatic one. And I think when I sang that one, I put a lot of emotion kind of into it and maybe frustration.
Yeah. But it's like a familial kind of thing, isn't it? Like you get a sense that it's about like how family relationships affect a lot of things. So not wanting to go into further depth, I think that does resonate really well. I think it's a really clever song. I think it's the best arranged song on the record. It's got so many interesting things going on.
Yeah.
And it just builds into that. And that final riff, the one that we couldn't get properly. To do it in two parts because it was so hard to not blur together. Great song.
I found a new one. I'll color it the same as I did before.
Then Absence of Mind. So for me, Cenotaph and Absence, like they are literally the centre point of the record. They're right in the middle. They're the sort of most progressive, interesting songs, I think. What are your thoughts on Absence of Mind? Actually, I'll tell you mine. This is the one I couldn't get Swaby to fucking play in time with that delay.
Yeah, I remember that. And he was just like, and he'd play it and go, wait, what? I don't know. I mean, again, it's one of those ones I listen to now and go, could have played that more live. But I really struggled, and I'm not ashamed to admit this, I really struggled singing that one live. It's really up there. It's really up at the top of the range. And obviously, when you're in the studio, it's like you can kind of have as many goes as you want. Then maybe back off and maybe come back to it later and stuff.
Sorry, next up is River Song. Like, God, it's such a cool name, Andy. It was such a great name for a song. Where'd you get that from? You like Doctor Who?
Yeah, I really stood up with that. It was basically, I was a big Doctor Who fan, and there's a character in there called River Song, and it just sounds awesome. It's like a cool sounding thing. And I remember like when we wrote the song, it's got nothing to do with that. And they were like, what should we call it? And I said, a River Song. And everyone was like, yeah, wicked. And then it had been entrenched for like a year, and then I admitted what it was about. And it's funny because we shot a video for River Song with Tom Welsh.
Tom Welsh.
Tom, who is very successful videographer now and director and runs Tens Sunglasses, and he's the brother of Matt from While She Sleeps, who we were very pally with, Matt put us in touch with Tom, and so we shot us video, like a proper professional video for River Song. And so when you look at the YouTube comments, people will be like, oh, I came here because of Doctor Who, but cool song, so it actually like drew in some Doctor Who fans. Yeah, I don't know what that one's about. That one's, I don't know. Again, I think that's like an amalgamation of just cool sounding lines. I don't think it's really got a message.
Cool song. In my head, we added the end to the start, didn't we? Like a little intro thing.
Yeah.
I can't remember the reasoning, but it does work. It's kind of a cool little... It's quite different for a start of a song, I think.
Yeah, like kick straight in. Yeah, with like that kind of chorusy bit. But again, that's a weird one. Like, that song doesn't really have a chorus.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't have a repeating chorus. It's like just sort of different sections of the way through.
Very hooky though, and it's the closest thing we had on that record to like I suppose that and Black Holes are like the closest things to pop songs, basically, aren't they?
Yeah, pretty much. And that was always like River Song was always a very popular one in terms of we obviously got some good radio play out of it, and I think it was on Scuzz, which doesn't exist anymore, but it was on TV and stuff. Yeah.
So next up is Suits. Which is in G sharp tuning, I think.
Well, only the bottom E. Well, we played Burn the Fleet was in C sharp, open. Yeah, C sharp was our tuning that we played. We then down tuned what would be the traditional top or bottom E on a standard tuning, and tuned that down to G sharp. So it was
they could sound more like Korn.
And it was just that top string. Yeah. So it sounds very metally, but the rest of the guitars in our sort of standard tuning or bass. But the issue I always have with that song, as wicked as it is, my basses couldn't take it, and I couldn't. I should have got a bass specifically for that one song, I suppose. But the problem was because the tuning was so low, if I hit the strings too hard, it would then go out of tune even further because it was just like. But it does sound cool, especially I remember on production side of that, the bass tone in that song is
there's little slides in the last.
They're almost like their own sub drops. It's pretty cool.
No, and I remember we used Dan's piece of shit snare drum for that. He had some snare that he was always like, "Oh, can we use my snare?" And I was like, "No, mate, it's fucking crap. Let's use a good one." And it's like some little maple pop
random cheapo thing.
It sounded really good for this. It's tuned up high and it's
unbelievable, that snare. Yeah,
just such an aggressive song. It's so pissed off.
Yeah,
and already covers the kind of lyrical content.
And we got Tom Denson of Kerouac fame has a little cameo in that. My best mate Tom, and he's always good to have a bit of shouting on there.
Yeah, there's a bit of me screaming in there as well.
There is, yeah, you're on there.
So on the last track there, Irish Eyes.
I'll never feel. Maybe I'm too dry.
I remember being like really ambivalent about all the way up until it was finished, and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, and it's one of those ones where, again, from my early memory, I just felt like it was a bit of a fillery song. Like we were desperate to like have these songs to impress Neil, to be like, we need to record an album. Do you remember we recorded one like acoustic song and then we just cut it because it was it was like a real like fucking croonery shit song. Like I remember playing that to my mum and dad, and my mum and dad laughed, and I was like, we got to cut this, which is brutal. Like my parents laughed at it, and I was like, okay, this isn't.
I can't really remember it. I
can't remember it at all. I remember it being cheesy as fuck. And then Irish Eyes, I always felt was a bit of filler, but then again, in hindsight, like it's one of my favorite ones on there, which is really weird. Again, because it's got so much scope in it, I think, and we obviously tried to do quite a lot with it. The whole like the waves part, and then we try and like bookend it with the start of the album so that it's like a complete cycle. And I got to do some very nice like belty parts in there. And Dan does some really cool like drum fills at the end, because it's just we like let it fade out quite nicely, and you know, just I remember us doing the takes for that, and Dan just carried on playing, just dun 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 dun, and then he just went playing just every time, do a different fill. But yeah, that's a cool, and again, that's one where people would always be like, "Can you play this song?"
You played it live, haven't you? So
I feel like we played it once.
I
feel like we only played it once. It's quite a hard one to do, and because we wrote it simply in the studio, we never really figured it out what it should be live.
So just a few notes on the production. There's listening back to it this afternoon, there's a lot of reversed things in there. There's loads of reversed things, like when there's like acoustic guitars or clean guitars, it's got a reverser underneath it. I used reversing stuff so much on that.
Okay, yeah.
Like, can we make it feel a bit vibey here? It's like, cool, I'll reverse whatever's there. There's tons of it. There's absolutely loads of it. The one thing I think in hindsight, it's really easy for me to see this, but at the time, I don't know if it was obvious, but you know, like Super Unknown's like my favourite record. Mm-hmm. I remember thinking at the time, like, I want it to feel like Super Unknown, but be like a contemporary, you know, like post-hardcore rock record or whatever. But listen back to it, it's quite. I can hear the Super Unknown influence in it, like the drums being pretty natural and really, the guitars being kind of like vintage toned rather than the modern aggressive tone that a lot of other bands are doing at the time. Like even the stuff still feels kind of like spongy and mid-range.
Yeah, we were one of those bands who kind of sat in a weird space in terms of genre. Yeah. And we would always be put on with a lot of metal bands on bills and stuff. And I think, when we did the album, that was definitely something we didn't want to have tone-wise. I say not metal, but like modern rock, I suppose, at the time was very, I suppose, a bit processed,
wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and we were like, no, we don't want it to sound like, we want it to sound like, you know, like a band.
Yeah. So for me, like that really popped out to me, like, and it was a lot of it is like guitar left, guitar right kind of thing, where they have their individual parts and they kind of interweave a little bit, and it does have a really cool like performance vibe to it. A lot of it still feels to me like it's not slammed and processed and like it's not too much kind of going on beyond the parts and then some stuff reversed for some reason. It's just all the way through.
Definitely, for me, Irish Eyes sounds like how I think we would play it. I know that might sound weird, but it sounds like as close to a live recording or like how the band would play it live.
The harmonies aren't like stacked and hard panned. They're like underneath or will be on the right or on the left, depending on what was kind of going on.
Yeah,
I kind of like that. And when it's choral, it's like, it's really choral. It's, you know, it's very much like this isn't supposed to be like Andy singing now. It's supposed to be like a choir is singing.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to kind of it's nice to go back through it with you and kind of look back on a few things. I think it's always going to be one of my favourite records I make, because I think it is it was a genuine passion project. Like, if I remember rightly, didn't take any money for this for quite a long time, if ever.
Sorry, man. I think the signal just cut out again.
No, that's like it was my choice. It was a thing I wanted to do.
I always hold, you know that you're going to be one of my closest friends, ride or die, or whatever. And the fact you sacrificed, in my opinion, a lot, for that record. It never goes unnoticed. No, it never will with me. To the point where any project I do, I come to you,
you probably overpaid on your last.
I'm probably paid now with all the other stuff I've recorded, maybe. Apparently, mates rates? No. But no, you put a lot on the line, not just for the record, but for us as a band as well. And you were very supportive. And we used to practice at the ranch as well, and had a little sort of space we could use.
Yeah, did you have set nights and stuff like that, if I remember rightly? Yeah. No, it's I've got nothing but fond memories of it.
Well, again, another thing, that lovely, again, anyone who's recorded at the ranch and has had the privilege of playing that Geddy Lee bass,
which
is a beautiful bass and unbelievable. That was my touring bass and Burn the Fleet. So again, sorry if there's any chips in it. But you were very kind enough to get that for me. And then obviously when the band was over, I'm obviously not going to keep it. So it's like it should go back to the studio where it can actually have some good use and not just sit in my room or something,
Well, should you ever need it, mate, it's always there for you.
No, it's fine. I'm not going to get any use out of it. But again, that was another thing you did as well. You sort of pushed. Again, I kind of forget this happened, and we were there very briefly, but then it got removed. We were like endorsed by Fender for a very brief stint. I think they became a bit more selective, but we definitely were on the website for a while.
No, like I say, got great memories of it. Like, there's very few bits thinking back to Burn the Fleet that caused me anxiety. There's a few things I can think of, but it was always 99% of the time a real pleasure. And it's a shame it didn't. In my mind, this is one of the reasons I want to talk to you, because it's a record I think deserved more than it got. But that probably comes down to the fact that didn't we know what we were doing?
Yeah. And I don't think we did. It's one of those funny things. Like I think back on it, and we were very popular in Southampton, and that was like kind of my thoughts were back then was we didn't play a lot, and it would be like we would play in Southampton and then we wouldn't play for like 4 months so that people would come. So we built that kind of early fan, I'd say fan base, people who would come and watch in the town. And then obviously we started like doing touring stuff. And again, I just think we never really applied kind of that same methodology to the bigger picture of like what we need to do to kind of get to that next level. And it's the classic band story. Like I've talked about this with other friends who've been in bands, how we always compare your almosts, like we almost got this or we almost got that. And you talking about Alkaline Trio, I remember we were on tour in Germany and I got a phone call and it was like, "Hi Andy, we want Burn the Fleet to play the Pyramids, main support to Alkaline Trio. It's already sold out. You don't have to do anything, just show up and play." And we were like, "Yes, amazing, wicked." Then the week of the show, Matt Skiba broke his foot and they cancelled the show. And it's just one of those classic, like, the almost, like, the almost.
Yeah.
Like, every band's got one of those.
I'll end with one of my almost. And in one of my old bands, we were put on was it like the second ever download or the first download? And we were on the poster and everything. We were going to open the main stage. And 2 weeks beforehand, we got bumped. We got a call from our manager saying, "Sorry, guys, you've been bumped. It's not happening." And we were just like Devo, like completely inconsolable. But they said they're going to do something good for you to make it right. And what they did was they put us on, I don't know if you remember that thing that used to tour, but then it was called Deconstruction. And that was like a touring.
Vaguely.
I suppose, I don't know what it really was, but it's like 20 odd bands and they'd tour cities together, like kind of thing. As far as I remember, it was like a festival or some bullshit.
Like Taste of Chaos.
Like Taste of Chaos, yeah.
Yeah.
They did one. It was at LA2 this year, and we ended up playing with Thrice and a bunch of other bands of that kind of ilk. We were probably the lightest band on the bill by a mile, but that was cool. Do you know what I mean? We got to play on a bill with a band I really liked. But the reason we got bumped when Download happened is because Metallica played a secret show at Download and we got bumped. The bill went pushed down, we got bumped off, which might be a reason why I fucking hate Metallica. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Bastard. So that was in the Napster days as well.
Yeah, right Napster days. Yeah. Right, let's wrap up there, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. So nice to catch up and see your face and talk through these memories.
You too, bro. Yeah, really enjoy the podcast as well, man. And all your recent work, especially shout out Winter Passing. That record is amazing, dude. So them and you should be very proud of that. It's amazing.
It's really nice.
Yeah,
well, hopefully they listen. Otherwise, I'm not going to tell them, so they won't. All right, big love, mate. I'll see you soon. Take care.
Bye.